New Year, and welcome back to the Blood Prison Shakedown. My name's Vic, and we are bringing in 2025 a little bit late, but that's okay. I want to apologize for the postponement of the original podcast with Alan Hops, but he has joined us today. Alan, how we doing?
I am doing great. If I was any better, I'd be twins. This is there's a rumor that there's an off season to haunting, but I don't know when that is because I'm kind of busier right now than I am almost any other time of year.
It's wild how that works out. It's the same way when I first started here. It was kind of like January, February, March was, relatively slow, but now it's all year. I agree.
Absolutely. With Transworld being at the end of February this year,
Yeah.
and there's just a number of other projects that are kind of screaming at me right now. It's right now it's full tilt.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get right into it, man. I will say I want to give you a mad props because when we go to Transworld, we'll take some of the seminars and everything, and all my crew, like, they love your seminars at Transworld. Since you brought that up, we get so much from it, man. Great job. You're doing fabulous there.
Thank you. Thank you. I think my style of brain loves to just consume.
Yeah,
And I have kind of guided myself to consuming things that aren't necessarily haunted house related, but then taking it back to the industry and to what I do every day and try to, adapt some of those outside sources to be interesting things, fuel for haunts.
sure. Yeah, I get it, man. So speaking of haunts, let's talk Dark Hour Haunted House. How long you been running that?
So I ran it from its very opening at 2013.
Okay.
And then in January of 2023, we bought it. So now I'm an owner, um, just for the since 2023 season.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been running it for a little over 10 years.
So like 2013, you said is the first year. What was like the original concept or theme for Dark Hour?
So all right, if you go back, originally Dark Hour started before me, and I'm the director that got it open. There were two other show directors before me, but they didn't quite get it off the ground. Um,
Okay.
due to all various issues that like all creative projects have. And it was called Dark Shadows Haunted House in the beginning, which I kind of think was a nightmare due to the Dark Shadows movie that was out about that time, and
Mm.
that's already a brand. So, but um, its story back then, when we redid the story to become Dark Hour, was there was this house, there was Coven Manor,
Mm-hmm.
and in the house it was a house full of witches, and then there were staff in the house, and the staff and the servants in the house on the side like practiced voodoo and were combating the witches. So when you went through, there was this element of those two forces at combat, and the end was supposed to be this big scene of them, the witches and the voodoo practitioners fighting, the voodoo people being the good guys trying to stop the demons of the witches.
There you go. All right. So since your opening, or since that year when you were doing all that, which sounds amazing, um, is a theme change a yearly thing? Do you try to change that out yearly, or how do you do that? Do you do a percentage of it?
So let me tell you what we used to do, and then I'll tell you what we do now.
Okay.
And because things change, and honestly, that story, as I told you, really never quite showed up. It was hinted at, but it really wasn't quite there. Um, and then it changed into there's this coven of witches who are trying to bring about the Dark Hour spell, which will cause a magical eclipse that lasts forever, and it's just always nighttime. So like that was kind of the story,
Mm-hmm.
and we did 8 different shows a year. So we would tear down sets, we would rebuild sets, like, but that made a year was really like 10 Septembers because of all the tear down, which September is just the busiest month for a haunted house person. You're crazy before opening.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it just made it for an unenjoyable couple of years where we did 8 full shows. So we pared it back to 6 shows. So all of our changes then came about from what was the coolest thing that we did for this off-season show in March? Let's keep that and we'll reskin it for October. What was the coolest thing for this off-season show we did in July? We'll keep that. So then you had 7 new things come October, as well as anything you worked on for, the show itself.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that was good. When COVID happened,
Yeah.
surprise, COVID changed things.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
it was such a positive. Not that people got sick and died, yet that's terrible. But the
Right.
positive was, what does every haunted house person want? More time.
Mm-hmm.
We took a year off. We took a year off. We didn't open for during the COVID season,
Mm-hmm.
and I really refined the story, the backstory, the characters, the coven, the witches. So now it's a very defined coven of 13 witches and their underlings, and uh, the show is laid out in such a way where each witch has a representation in the show. So you're gonna, Chi Lung, the dragon witch, is going. She's one of the witches of the coven, and you go through ancient China. And then there's a witch from colonial America, the demon speaker, and so you're going to go through a Salem like town in the 1700s. So you're going through all these different realms because the the house itself changes because of how warped and how evil the witches are. So just by their nature, they make their surroundings change into something that suits them. Um, and the mechanic that we used is Dark Hour Haunted House was made by the witches as a haunted house because they need fear to power the spell. So the more people that go through and the more scared they get, the closer they are to bringing their spell about. So
Ah.
that was kind of the fun angle that we took.
That sounds off the hook. And I wanna ask, like, how important is that? Because that seems very deep and very, multiple levels of, when it comes to the theme of your haunt or the backstory. How important is a backstory to a haunted house in your eyes?
Well, it depends on who it's important to.
Yeah.
It's important to me because it tells me what to build, what to buy, what to make. It sends me down a path.
Mm-hmm.
It's direction. Your backstory is part of your direction, and direction implies you're going somewhere. You have a path of travel. You have a plan. And if you don't have a backstory, then you might have an enjoyable show, but you're going to go from the inbred moonshine still into the circus, into, you know, a werewolf cave,
Yeah.
into, another inbred family, into a Victorian library, and you can bounce around too easy without any,
Yeah.
and the guest kind of feels a little bit overwhelmed. They had a good time, but and each individual thing was cool, but it didn't like make sense as a whole. We
Right.
have what we call a framework story with that coven of witches. There's 13 different witches, and those, each different witch is a different flavor. If someone comes out of Dark Hour and says, if everybody came out and said, "Oh, this was my favorite part," then I have failed because only one thing is good enough to remember and to be your favorite. I should hit a bunch of different notes. One which can hit the body horror note, one which can hit the Cthulhu note, one which can hit the scary inbred note. It's all these different
Mm-hmm.
notes that you're hitting. Um, each one allows someone to be a nerd and identify with that type of, geek, that type of story and genre. And I just think that's more successful. So the backstory is a guide for me of what do I do next.
Mm-hmm.
I have this coven of
Yeah.
witches, and to answer your question earlier of how we figure out what changes. Now I have 13 witches. One can die, you know,
Okay.
and certainly I said they're underlings. There's sub witches under them who are fighting for power, and maybe they off one of their bosses and they take their place in the coven. Well, that means I get to change out 1/13 of the show anytime I want to change out a witch.
That is like next level deep. I mean, I see what you're saying though, because you've been to many haunts where you're kind of running through the normal. This is, there's got to be clowns and there's got to be, the hillbilly, crazy hillbilly area. That makes total sense. And I never thought of it that way in the sense of what was your favorite part. You know what I mean? It's just a different perspective to how to look at it. Well, they said their favorite part was, this. So our other parts are lacking. That's got to be hard to try and keep up with, though, isn't it?
Um, yes, it is, but also you have the aspect of what is your crew excited to work on? You
Yeah.
know, I run heavy as far as crew goes. We have about 13 people who are on year round, and I'm getting constant feedback from them, and we're talking, we're working on things and concepts and ideas,
Mm-hmm.
and what they're excited about. I think it's either, if it's new, if it has an energy to it, then it's something that we want to explore for guests. Then we do put more time and energy in that. Um, but basically, it's any witch whose area never got mentioned as someone's favorite part.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she might be on the chopping block. But if there's a great gag in that section, that gag can be reskinned for one of the other witches or the next witch.
Yeah. Yeah, that's wild. So, speaking of your 13 witches, how do they are those the coveted characters? Like, are your actors striving to become one of those 13 witches? And does it really get so deep into the plot where your actors are like, hey, well, what if we kill her off and make her something else so I can be the witch? I mean, how do you go about handling that?
So, yes and no as far as it being coveted. I actually have all of the witches set up where they can be played by multiple people.
Ah,
I don't ever want it to be where one person is this witch and they're locked in,
yeah,
and because then if I want to kill off that witch, that actor is going to take it really personal.
sure,
But, I have probably 3 or 4 people who rotate between, playing one witch.
gotcha.
And that's for a number of practical reasons, but part of that is certainly ego. I don't want that to necessarily be elite. Um, my style of haunting is I love freedom. I want to give an actor 15 possible places to scare people,
Mm-hmm.
and I request that when a group goes through, you hit them in 3 of those spots. So you can keep changing it up, and you have a lot of movement and energy. I use a reverse chainsaw technique, which is the path of travel of the guest going through the haunt. There are actors who are on what I call reverse chainsaw. They go against the path, so they're walking through the hallways against the group
Mm-hmm.
in a route. So they might hit the same group 3 times, but in different spots.
Gotcha.
And all they're
Yeah,
doing is they're running a loop against the path of travel.
yeah.
Uh, and what that does is that increases my actor hits per group, and it allows that actor a lot of freedom. Is they're going to hit people in different spots, and they're going to see the same group a couple times, which allows them to get to know that group and allows them to know who to go for, and just that kind of stuff. But because I have that freedom and mobility, it's coveted to be on the ground and to be mobile and scaring people.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of my culture.
Yeah.
All the witches are stationary. They have to be in one spot. They're on elevated platforms. They're normally mic'd, so you can't get around. A lot of times the lights are in your eyes so that you're lit up a certain way and you can't even see the people down there. So you have to act and interact and hit buttons, and you don't get that direct feedback that you get when you're on the ground. So, yes and no. They know they're a star because they're up there and the lights are on them, and maybe, that witch is on the poster this year or whatever it is. But
Mm-hmm.
um, I think that they're happy to do either one. I don't have, how every haunt has actors who say, I only want to work outside. I don't want to do anything else. I don't have any actors who say, I only want to play a witch. I don't want to do anything else. I
Yeah, I
don't
see.
have that.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, I mean that's probably a common thing. Actors wanting to do like I have actors that like I only want to do this, and we try to accommodate. But it's like, look, we always tell them, okay, this is your spot, but like if, something happens, I might need to move you, and they're usually pretty good about that. What do you like? Dark hour. I've never been there. I'd love to come by. Um,
Please come on out. I'd
I'd
love
love
to. I'd
to.
love to give you a tour.
I'd love to come out, man. I'm gonna do a tour later this spring, I'm thinking about, I've reached out to a few people. I'll definitely get with you. Maybe I see you at Transworld. We'll work it out. Um, how many, like, I don't know how big the show is, but what do you run actor wise? Like, what's your number there?
So when we're full, it's about 95.
Oh, wow.
When
Okay.
we're full. Um, Now my off-season shows, I'll run on 45, maybe 50. But
Now,
I'm
why is that?
I'm actor centric because I have
Okay.
less through. I'm going to do um,
Oh,
maybe 1,200 people on an off-season night, 12 to 1,500.
mm-hmm.
Whereas on a haunt night, I could do, you know, that busy Saturday, you could do 4,500, 5,000.
Right. Right.
You know, uh, and your hours are longer on the off season, on the show, the regular season. So
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
shorter hours. So, um, yeah. What was the question that I was answering?
Yeah. I
Um,
kind of,
oh, number of actors. Yeah,
yeah.
and I just I like having a lot of people. I want a rich, in-depth world. So we have a lot of actors who have direct interactions, and there are some that are just they're doing their thing, whether the guests are kind of there or not, and they're just enriching the world. It's a And then there's people who are trying to convey story. I've got
Mm-hmm.
percentages worked out of what percent is trying to convey story, which percent is just trying to attack them.
Yeah.
I've got uh, my head wants to make sense of things, so I end up doing things like, you know, 25% should be this, 20% should be puppeteers, and that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
So when it comes to your actors, if I'm an actor, I've never acted in a haunted house before, and I go to apply at Dark Hour Haunted House, what do I got to do to get on your team as an actor?
So let me tell you my super simple audition process.
Yeah.
Um, well, first of all, there's background checks. Once you pass the background check,
Yep.
that's if you that's important. Um, but why do you want to work at a haunted house? I asked that question.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you want to work at this haunted house? Why do you want to work at Dark Hour specifically? I asked that question. Um, if the answer is for the money, I'm not as thrilled
Yeah.
as if it's they've always loved Halloween or monsters, or you know they have a mental condition where they have to play a hunchback. Like, okay, sure, I'm game. That's way more
Yeah.
fun. Um, and so that I ask those things, and then I have them stand up and I do a physicality portion, walk from one side of the room to the other as if you were a zombie,
Mm-hmm.
walk from one side of the room as if you were a werewolf. And they do the zombie, they do the werewolf. Now I've gotten a fast motion character and a slow motion character.
Mm-hmm.
And then I say, walk across the room as if you were a ballerina who was just hit by a school bus. Then I can engage a bit of their creativity and see
Yeah.
what they're going to give me, and see what they're willing to do. Um, those are my three things. And then I say, I want you to say these words to me exactly in the scariest way you can think of. And that is, I'm going to stab you in the face. I want you to say to me, I'm going to stab you in the face in the scariest way you can think of. And I've had actors get up and run and turn off the lights and then say it in the dark. I've had actors get really close and whisper in my ear. I've
Yeah.
had one go under the table, and I've had a couple go under the table and say it. Um, my favorite is one where I said, I just want you to say to me in the scariest. They had a great audition up to this point. In the
Yeah.
scariest way possible, I'm gonna stab you in the face. And they said, okay, thank you. They shook my hand and they left. I'm like, what the heck?
That
And
didn't
then my
work.
phone rings. I answer my phone, and they said, I'm gonna stab you in the face. And I said, get back in here so we can get you some paperwork.
Yeah, no
Because
doubt.
that was a nice way, around it. I hadn't been called before, but they had my number for the audition process. So
Yeah. That's that's really cool. It's kind of tough here. So I've always wondered because we kind of used to do that, like auditions. Now we just kind of bring people in and we start putting them through training, and just to try and help them, get a little more, I don't know, a little more out there, a little more, not as shy, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I want them to feel like actors.
Yeah.
I want them to feel like I am a director.
Yeah.
and I want them to feel like the staff that I was already here is there to help them. They are guides. Um, I'm the direction. Your casting director and all of your actor leads, those are your guides to
Hmm.
help you. We're all on the same path. Some people are just higher up the path. We've already blazed that trail. Come on,
Yeah.
it's not difficult. It's a lot of fun, but I want the focus. I'm probably a more directy director than most haunts. I pick what they're going to say. I pick what they're going to wear. Um, I don't. They don't have a lot of input there. Aside from I encourage them to make their own characters that fit within that dark hour story. They make their own characters that fit within that story. Great.
So it sounds like it's a very theatrical atmosphere. Would you say that?
Boy, I've never done theater, so I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say no. It's very much a haunted house atmosphere, but it's
Yeah.
directed. It's not chaos. It's directed. I want the guests to have a certain experience, and if I let the actors do whatever they want, I'm not directing that experience, and
Right.
I don't really know what the actors get. One of the things that I kind of say a lot in that vein, a lot of actor trainers will say, if you can't scare them, then entertain them or make them laugh.
Yeah.
No,
Right. Yeah.
I
No.
don't. I
Okay.
don't do that. I don't suggest that because let's say Shaquille O'Neal comes through.
Okay.
He's 7 foot tall.
Yeah.
That's
He's
a
a big
very
boy.
large man. I've seen him be very aggressive. I'm probably not going to scare him. That's
Hmm.
what every actor is going to say. Every actor tries to make him laugh. Did he get a good haunted house? No.
Not if he's wanting to be
He
scared.
didn't.
Yeah.
He didn't go to a comedy club that night.
That's true.
He went
Yeah.
to a haunted house. He chose that level of entertainment. Even if they're not scared, give them the scary show
Right.
because that's what I want them to see.
Sure. That makes sense.
Now, when I worked at Terror on Church Street in Orlando in 1995, Shaquille O'Neal played for the Orlando Magic. He came through.
Yeah.
I chose to terrorize him. And I watched him knock down everybody that he was with. It was what I assume were escorts. Maybe not. Maybe they were fine, upstanding ladies. I have no idea. And Jason Kidd was in the same group.
Yeah.
And Shaquille O'Neal jumped backwards, knocked all of them over like dominoes, and crab crawled over everyone to get away from me. If I had chosen to make him laugh, that never would have happened.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I
That's just
want
wild.
I want the scary show.
Yeah.
Even if
Yeah.
someone
Hell
comes
yeah.
out and say, I didn't get scared, but man, they tried really hard. I'd
Yeah.
rather have that than say, what the hell did I just go to? Everybody in there was cracking jokes. Nobody even was scary.
Yeah.
That's the show
Yeah.
you would get if every actor made that choice.
Right. That
So
makes sense.
I want to make the scary choice.
Well, I think that's great, and that was going to be my follow up question. Was so I'm taking it you Shaquille O'Neal came through the hunt. That's an amazing story. And if anybody like actors or that are watching or listening right now, I hope you're paying attention because this is all gold. I'm going to tell you that much right now. Um, Keeping on the actor side of things, for people who are listening or watching, that everybody has this question. It's always I get this question a lot. And I'm just like, you just got to roll with it, man. I'd love to hear your perspective on hiring actors and how many you run. So what happens? We all know the first couple weekends you're fine, but then when they realize, yeah, this is kind of a job, and then the numbers start to dwindle down. Do you like rehire? Do you overhire? What's your thoughts on that?
So every night we end up with 5 people over what I want to use in the show. That's how many
Mm-hmm.
we bring on for that night. And they are in your super duper filler spots. And then if you need to, you move them. Um, but I'm very clear of working with people as far as there's a spot where for me you're going to be amazing. I don't know where that is.
Mm-hmm.
I can go up to someone and say, tonight wasn't it. You were not amazing where you were at, you know. And then I can say, did you feel amazing? And if they say, yeah, it felt amazing, I really liked where I was. I say, then let's work on what I want out of this spot and what you're doing right now. Let's try to meet closer to what I want. Or they might say, I didn't like that spot. Okay, well, that spot was a talking spot and you were not comfortable with that. Let's try you somewhere else. And we've got a bunch of different types of spots, anywhere from, it's a puppet, and a lot of folks love puppets. They're not dealing with people. They get to stay that 6 feet away, but they get to see the guest reactions. But they also are kind of contained in their own little world a little bit. And there's obviously a barrier in between them and the guests, and they like that. They want that level of comfort. And other people just want to be up in their face. They want to do the reverse chainsaw. That's not for everybody,
Right.
because we might have a conga line. I expect you to keep going. You know, all those people are packed in, and you're going to keep going through, because that's how we get those multiple hits. Um, no role is for everyone, so we have to find the right spot for those people. We do a lot of exercises, actor training exercises, to
Hmm.
find where their proclivities are, as far as aggression, as far as claiming space. Uh, and those exercises really help in determining what they're good at. Are they are they a lion? Are they a coyote? Those that's obviously a lion is a charge, a coyote is a lure, kind of a pull. But
Hmm. So, are you on average? If you hire so many, is there a percentage um, that you lose? Like, let's say if you had 100 and you usually fit. I mean, are you pretty close? I guess is what I'm asking, to starting and ending with about the same number.
we lost 7 last year. Like
Wow.
through the course of the season, we
Hmm.
lost about 7 people. Um, Now, does that mean everybody showed up for every night they were supposed to work? No, no, it's people are people.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to be distracted and to not. We're almost always, we're something extra. We're
Yeah.
something extra that they're doing, and you have to make them love it more than how awesome staying at home on the couch is. I mean, that's a haunts competition now for actors and
Yeah.
for guests. It's not going out to the movies. In the '80s, that was your competition. Are they
Yeah.
going to go out to the movies? Are they going to go out to the roller rink? Or are they going to go to your haunted house? And
Yeah.
now it's, man, staying home sure is cool. You have to lure them away from home.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any
I
movie
don't
they
get
want to
that.
watch is at their feet. They can play video games with friends of theirs from around the world. You
Yeah.
know, it's get them away from home. Show them things they can't see anywhere else.
Yeah. That's a challenge in itself. That's for sure. So, when it comes to the components of your attraction, I mean, what do you value the most? It sounds like actors. I mean, is the actor the most important part? Props, animatronics.
I'm going to say dark fantasy is the most important element. And here's why. Having that dark fantasy direction, I'm dealing with witches, I'm dealing with magic. There's goblins, there's werewolves, there's trolls, there's chinus. There's all kinds of different creatures. There's wendigos. Um, there's all kinds of different creatures, and that dark fantasy element makes guests feel like they're somewhere special,
Mm-hmm.
and make the actors feel like they're somewhere special. If you're in a suit of leather armor, right?
Yes.
That's cooler than a costume from the thrift store that got distressed,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
Because no one has seen this before.
Yeah.
If you need an actor to feel, here's a tip for your costumers and your actor directors. If you want an actor to feel more confident, put them in a set of leather bracers. You slide a set of leather bracers on, you feel tough, you know? And it's
Yeah.
it's think about those costuming elements to get the actors to feel the way you want them to feel, and make sure that you work that in. I don't feel tough when I'm wearing a dirty wife beater.
Right.
And I know that
Yeah.
that's for you guys are a prison. That's perfectly acceptable costume. you
Yeah.
know there
We
there
have it.
there's scrubs, there's
Yep.
jumpsuits. That's and that's a what I that's first level costuming is what I call that, simply because people are used to it and it's readily available.
Mm-hmm.
None of it had to be custom made, you know and none of it necessarily has very unique design elements.
Right.
If, like, we have a lot of real shreddy robes. Well, the shreds are done a certain way. There's laser files that our costumes are cut on a laser to get all the shreds in, you know,
Oh wow.
um, and to get them to look the way that I want, because I want the dark hour costuming to have a look. One of my best examples of this is Castle Blood. If you're familiar with them, they're a haunt in Pennsylvania, small haunt, but the owners, one of the owners, Ricky Dick, has been doing this for a long time, and he had a costuming company,
Hmm.
and I think he still does, but it's not he's not at Transworld as much anymore. Um, and their look, their characters with their coats and their robes and their doublets, very distinct look to their characters, and that really sunk into me as it was that I loved that, and I could look at someone and say, "Oh, they're from Castle Blood." But if you send your actors to a fair, or you send them to a convention, I want people to look at them and say, "Oh, those are dark hour actors."
Right. Yeah.
Because normally what happens is they see haunt actors and they're like, they're from whatever the largest haunt in the area is, and that's who they think they're from,
Yeah.
until they go up and talk. You
Yeah.
know, work your logo into the costuming, work as much as you can to make it your look. You know,
Right. That makes sense. So let's say in the last 30 years or so, since you brought up 1995, that's about 30 years ago. Um, I know it sucks to say, and I graduated then, so it's like, oh, yeah, okay, I'm old. That's fine. How have haunted houses changed in the last 30 years in your eyes? I mean, from the mid 90s, and I know there was haunts before that, but just saying the last 30 years, like, how do you think they've changed?
I think they're better. I think they're safer. Um, there is a charm to old 80s and 90s haunted houses. I think some of that charm is gone
Yeah.
because now most of us are businesses and realize we have to make money in order to keep doing this.
Yeah.
Um, I think that with the advent of the internet, it used to be in the 80s and 90s, we had what I called goldfish bowl haunts.
Mm-hmm.
Every haunt was its own goldfish bowl. And this haunted house, this goldfish, developed drop panels. And it used to be where you wouldn't even let actors from another haunt come to your show because they
Mm-hmm.
were there to steal your secrets.
Oh.
Old
Okay.
haunters, you'd hear them say that a lot. They're going to steal my secrets. Well, they developed the drop panel, and then some other haunt over here, they developed something else. And this haunt developed something else. And the way that I kind of came up and learned so much was I would work at one haunt, work at another, and literally I would steal their secrets and totally take them and just put them in my brain
Yeah.
and say, all right, when I can do haunts, I'm gonna do that. Or if I went to a haunt that was lacking and this area sucked, I'm like, could we put a drop panel here? They'd be like, what's that? Well, there's this haunt I worked at 3 states away, and they did that. Well,
Yeah.
now there's some haunts you go through, and it's like, I've been through this haunt. I went through this haunt in Chicago, but this haunt is in Pennsylvania. I've
Mm-hmm.
been through, and because they're buying things from the showroom floor, it's not getting altered. They're buying the coolest stuff.
Yeah.
Everybody sees the same cool stuff, and in some ways it makes haunts a little bit the same.
Yeah.
So one of the ways that I combat that is by having a direction, having a backstory, and that way I know my haunt can stay unique, even if not all, some other haunts are a little more like McDonald's, you know, because there's a McDonald's everywhere.
Right. Yes. I agree. I
and
agree with you on
and
that one.
you have to defend your brand. Anything you buy at the show, it does not pretend it doesn't come finished. You have to paint it for your show, you have to dress it for your show,
Mm-hmm.
change the colors, change the shape, change whatever you can, change the sound it comes with.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like the Wilhelm scream. You come through and they hit the button on the puppet, and it's the same noise at every haunt on that puppet.
Yeah.
You have That's a little disc, man. Change that.
Right. Sure.
Someone
Yeah.
on your staff is talented enough to be able to make a cool noise for that to work. And
Yeah.
and then you're crafting a world.
Yeah.
Then you're building uh, a world for your guests. It used to be where I made my own mask starting in '95 in order to um, someone came through, and it was Terror on Church Street, and they said, I have that Wolfman mask when I jumped out and scared them. And I thought, well, that's never going to happen again. so so I went and
Yeah.
I learned how to make my own, and I have been doing that ever since.
Wow. Yeah. What I mean,
But now it's oh, I saw this same giant rat at a different haunt I went to in your same market.
yeah.
You have to be aware
Yeah.
of what they've got around you and make it yours. Make it sound different, make it look a little different.
Right. So the early days, like the first time I went to, well, it wasn't even a haunted house. It was just like somebody put on a thing out in their woods. Okay. To me, like I'm always trying to give that person the scare that I had. My scare was like I legit thought I was gonna die. You know what I mean? Because like back in the this would have been the mid '80s. That was like there's a guy jumped out of a tree with a chainsaw, and we all just ran in different directions into the woods. And this guy just chased us, and we were supposed to stay on the trail, but we totally didn't. I legit thought, and I was like maybe 9. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, I'm not gonna make it. This is the end of my life right here. That's always what I'm trying to put out there, but that is hard these days because everybody's seen everything at this point. So that is like just a. Is it better just to put on this show that's got all the big props and all the cool lighting effects, or do you try to mix it up and still give it the dark hallways where you can't see your hand in front of your face? Of course, you got an exit sign illuminating, so that doesn't always work. But you know what I mean.
Um, so long answer, short answer. Short answer, I think you have to mix it up. I think you have
Yeah.
to. My goal at Dark Hour isn't to scare people. Like that's not what I build the haunt for.
Mm-hmm.
I know that sounds ridiculous, but my actors are going to scare people. I'm giving them an environment where that's possible,
Mm-hmm.
and my goal is to make the guests say "wow" 10 times. If they're going through and they say "wow" 10 times, whether it's a pool noodle briar tunnel where it's like it's thorns and briars, and I was
Yeah.
inspired by the briars from Sleeping Beauty at the very end where she turns into the dragon and the briars come up to stop him on his horse. I love those briars, so I made them out of pool noodles, and there's like a tunnel you go through,
Yeah.
and but that's a scene, like that's a setting, and people say wow,
Sure.
or one of our iconic endings is there's a witch in front of the moon and she's moving, and it's her silhouette. That's a wow moment.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can fill the haunt with wow moments, I'm releasing their inner child. The guest's inner child is much easier to scare by the actors, you
Mm-hmm.
know
Yeah.
so that's the thing, is make them say wow, get that sense of wonder, and that brings about some vulnerability, which then the actors can attack.
Sure. So when it comes to actors, and let's talk on the look end of things. So, are you like full makeup? Do you use masks, appliances? Where do you go in that direction?
Okay, so we use appliances, we use makeup, and I use a lot of masks. I'm probably
Mm-hmm.
50-50, because most of the characters in my haunt, I don't like people. Part of that dark fantasy is I don't want you to see the stuff in my haunt that you're going to see on CNN.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you can see it on CNN or the news, then you're not going to see it in my haunt. Um, uh, there's a lot of reasons for that, and layers of things, but I just don't want that. Maybe your uncle hung himself. You know that's
Mm-hmm.
possible. I don't want you to come into the haunt and see that.
Right.
No one's uncle was eaten by a werewolf. So I don't mind showing you a dead body that's completely disemboweled, as long as there's a werewolf hunched over it, and that's what did it. You
Yeah.
know, that's the thing. Um, what was that question that I got on that tangent about? What did you just ask me?
The masks or
Oh
makeup
yeah.
and
So
appliances.
a lot of the characters that I do, because I'm dark fantasy, are not human. So if you want to turn someone into a snouted, big-eared werewolf, that would take a long time with makeup, and it probably
Yeah.
wouldn't hold up. But a mask is pretty quick, and I enjoy making masks. Same is true with trolls. If it's a person or a person-like entity, maybe an elf, maybe a fairy, then they're probably going to be makeup. A vampire, vampires used to be people. They're going to be makeup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That makes sense. So the the bill, like for instance, the venue. I guess that'd be my next question. So we're a prison, so it's kind of hard to have a werewolf in here that would make sense. Even though a lot of the times, sometimes I don't care. It's just like I don't care. We're gonna do it, But not real. Not we kind of did in the early days. Not so much anymore. But so when you come in here, like no matter what area you're in, there's prisoners there. Okay, so does that go into it for you? Like I'm not sure what your venue is. So, but does that how are you able to just say there's no people here? They're all fictional characters.
Um, so I have a very blank slate of a haunt building. My haunt building is an old sporting goods store. It's about 50,000 square feet,
Okay.
and it was just a white rectangular building. We had to paint a little facade on the front of it, just a little bit of visual interest so people know where to go.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then that's a blank slate. Inside, I can do whatever I want. I have nice high
Yeah.
ceilings. I don't have, nothing that says sporting goods store. I don't have white drop ceiling. We first thing we did took out all the drop ceiling and painted the whole ceiling black.
Yeah.
It's the first thing we did. So, most of my ceilings are 20 feet or, right around 20 feet. So they're nice and high. I can build sets high. Um, so I have a blank slate as far as that goes. And I look at it like I have the advantage of having to build every single thing for that world, you know. Um, Whereas if you're going to use the walls of the prison and you're going to use the bars of the prison, there's only so many stories you can tell
Yes.
because that's your setting.
Yeah. It
Now, I
really
wouldn't
is.
I wouldn't mind throwing something supernatural in there at all, but that's just me. I think a werewolf in a prison is awesome and terrifying because they're all locked in there with him.
Yeah. Well, and we tried it like we're as the years go by, we're kind of expanding in that instance. So it's like the basement that we use, the basement section of the prison, is kind of like the inmate research area, or you know what I mean. So we can get a little more fantastic down there when it comes to character design. So I've got like a prisoner that's been we have a lab down there where they're turning prisoners into different mutated creatures through experiments. Roughly for the story. So we are kind of approaching that realm, and it just makes it more fun, I think, going that direction.
Well, and I think it fantasy, witches, and magic means that you can do anything. I can write
Mm-hmm.
anything into that. Um, if if I was asked, hey, Alan, there's this prison haunted house, I want you to direct it this year. First thing I would do is I'd start a prison book club.
Mm-hmm.
But they have found a bunch of old magic books and they're summoning demons. So now I've got a supernatural element in my prison, just through the prison book club.
Yeah, yeah, that makes. I mean, and we do like because the prison is if you're into the paranormal, I suppose it is haunted. We do a lot of ghost hunts and stuff like that here. It's the paranormal program is a big part of it. So we try to play off that. We have a kind of a character here that's well known in Ohio, the warden's widow, and she plays this. She is kind of a phantom, if you will. You know what I mean? She doesn't play a real person. She is, but she was murdered by the warden, or she murdered the warden. There's a whole backstory with it. So we do kind of approach that, which again makes it more fun for everybody. But we've also got a clown area, which people kind of give me shit about, which is fine because they're like, "Why are there clowns in a prison?" I'm like, "Well, I've got a giant warden's widow manor up. There's a big house inside of here, so why is there a house inside? It's just you gotta, it's the imagination end of things is where I look at it.
And people want clowns.
Yeah,
You know,
that too. Yeah,
I'll admit I'm shoving Brussels sprouts down people's throat. Story wise, not
yeah,
everybody wants dark fantasy.
yeah,
I think they're tasty Brussels sprouts. I'm doing the best job that I can,
yeah.
but they would probably much rather have the pizza slice that is a haunted house clown.
Mm-hmm.
That's easy to digest. You see it.
Yeah.
It's simple. It's even kind of simple to play a haunt clown. You get a clown costume and it whispers to you, "Have a silly laugh and be an asshole." Like that's what it says. And
Yeah.
then the actor knows what to do. If you put them in um, if I put him in a Chinu costume, which is a Algonquin monster that
Mm-hmm.
one of our witches has several in under her power. Um, they're like, what's a Chinu? What do I do? You have to. It takes more explaining.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I think it's worth it, and if you keep giving the people what they want, every haunt will kind of be the same
Yeah.
because it's my job in my head. It's my job to see here is the line of what people expect. I need to be one step over. If I'm two steps over, no one knows what's going on. They don't get it. But if I'm one step over that line of what is traditional and common, and I've expanded them a little bit, I'm winning.
Yeah.
That's what I want to be doing.
That's great. Pure gold, folks. I hope you're listening. Pay attention. This has been awesome. I got to say, this is like school. Thank you so much.
I just love what I do, and
Yeah.
through loving what I do, I think about why what I do works and why what I have done doesn't work, and I look at those formulas and I try to figure those things out. I
Yeah.
don't I want everybody to haunt their own way. What is amazing about a haunted house, if I go through John LaFlamboy's haunt,
Mm-hmm.
I know what he cares about. I know what's important to him. If I go through Ben Armstrong's haunt, I know what he cares about. I know it's important to him because the
Mm-hmm.
haunts are different. I see it. If I go through Larry Kirshner's haunt, I know what he cares about. I see it. A good haunt is a reflection of its owner. And that's why I'm a little adverse to haunts that kind of feel the same.
Mm-hmm.
I want that heavy direction, like, some of the big boys have.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Agreed. 100%. So earlier you had mentioned making your own masks. So let's talk a little bit about that. And you've got um, another thing you do called Stiltbeast Studios. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so Stiltbeast Studios is kind of a two-prong entity. So Stiltbeast Studios makes masks and costumes for and props for haunted attractions and theme parks kind of all over the world. We make a lot of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a joy. Stiltbeast Studios also has a YouTube channel with a lot of haunted house DIY on how to make things,
Mm-hmm.
and in that way, we're kind of a media company. I produce actor training DVDs and that kind of stuff. So there's a media arm and a manufacturing arm of Stiltbeast Studios.
So when did you start that up? When did that get going?
I'd say probably the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been doing this a while. Um, I've exhibited under different companies at Transworld since '97.
Wow. That says something there. So you enjoy that. You enjoy sharing the wealth and the knowledge that you've gathered over the years. Then,
I want haunted houses to have cool stuff,
yeah.
and I want them to have unique things. Um, I want to bring things to the show. Again, as a vendor, I want to step one step over the line. What's not at the show?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's those guys have a really cool six-armed zombie. Well, the next year at the show, three vendors have a six-armed zombie.
Yeah.
That's not making the industry any better. That's giving you
No.
choices for the six-armed zombie.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
And someone's going to say we're wild and crazy. We made an eight-armed zombie. Okay,
Yeah.
it's still a six-armed zombie with two extra arms. you
Yeah.
know so it's finding different things, I think, to push. um yeah,
Yeah.
again, push them one step over the line. I want them to see things from at my booth that they have not seen before and would not have thought of.
So when you're at Transworld buying or looking at something to buy, what is your ratio of okay? So we're this is the new stuff we're doing this year. What is your ratio to making your own and buying from somebody at Transworld or wherever you're going?
All right, this is going to require a little bit of math,
Oh,
but everything turns into tickets, right?
okay.
A ticket for me is, let's say, it's $45, right? So something at the show is $450. That's
Mm-hmm.
10 tickets. Is that thing worth 10 people's tickets. Will this be 10 people's favorite thing? Then it's a real
Hmm.
easy yes. You know,
Okay.
um, I also will take how much money do I need to just run my staff for the year? I know how much that is. Turn that into tickets. What's left? Whatever is left is what I could possibly spend on. Normally, if I want one of something, I'm going to buy it. If I need five of something, I'm going to make it because
Gotcha.
it's just going to be cheaper.
Yeah. Okay. That's always something too that we always talk about here. Like my crew, they are like they're diehard. They wanna make it, and I'm just like, well, yeah, we could, but so and so has this. We could just buy it and then we're done. You know what I mean? So it's the for me it's always hard to balance what I'm buying to what I'm making.
And a lot of, unless you're at the management owner level, if someone offers me a free TV, all I have to do is go pick it up. That's probably a $150 TV. Like
Yeah.
that's what it cost me to get people together, go there, get it, bring it back, store it, pray it survives the move, you know.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
It's there's a big benefit to just, they're already doing it, they're making it. Let them make it a little special for us, change the look of it a little bit, give it a different paint job, and then, a lot of vendors are happy to do that. If they have sold 30 of something at the show, and you
Mhm.
say these are great, they're all blue, can I get a green one?
Yeah.
They'll be like, thank you, because it sucks to make 25 of anything.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
fun to
sure.
make one or two, but now I get to make a green one. Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. I used to vend at Transworld, and I got to tell you, like doing both for me was just like that was rough. Trying to do a vendor, running a vendor company, and then running this, trying to keep it all together was hard on me. How do you do that so well?
I don't think about it.
Well, that was easy.
No, some of the best advice I've ever gotten was quasi accidental,
Mm-hmm.
and it was from Tater, believe it or not.
Okay.
And it was back when Tater worked for Scare Factory,
Mm-hmm.
and we were talking about something, and he said, "Well, it's not design season." And I said, "Hold on, what do you mean design season?" And he said, "Well, design season is from this time to this time, and that's when we make new things. And then there's show season, and then there's production season."
Mm-hmm.
And I had never really thought of it that way. I was doing every single thing all the time. And it helped change how I did things in the way that I approach, this is my design season for the haunted house. This is my design season for Stiltbeast Studios. This is my show season for um, the haunted house, because we have a lot of shows that we do locally,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's a local horror convention or whatever. We have some shows that are kind of sprinkled throughout the year, but they're all in that spring block because that's when Texans do things.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a nice show season, and then we have a production season where we're producing the things that we sold at the show, and
I
then the
see.
haunt is open. So breaking it down into seasons that way helps a bit.
Yeah,
Are
that
there
makes
always
sense.
crazy outliers? Yes, but
Yeah, of course. So you mentioned Orlando, Texas. You've been around. It sounds like. Are you? I mean, where you? I mean, how'd you get to Texas? Are you from there originally?
Uh, no, I was raised in Maryland, and I
Ah,
was in Maryland till the age of 17, where I graduated high school. When I graduated high school, I drove a moped to Orlando. Um,
what the
yeah,
hell?
straight down I-95, because I had gone to Terror on Church Street the year before
Yeah.
in '94 and got an application, and I, secured a job in talking to them and stuff, and started working at Terror on Church Street in 1995, in June of 1995.
Okay.
And then uh, from Terror on Church Street in '97, I changed into working at Skull Kingdom, which was a new year-round haunt. Um,
Year round.
and I worked at Skull Kingdom from 97 until 2000. And but it's a year-round job. You get vacation time.
Mm-hmm.
Each of my vacations I would take in the beginning 2 or 3 weeks of October. And so I'd come back for the hard weeks, you know, but I would go to a different haunted house somewhere in the country and learn more. From the time I was 10 to 17, I bounced around haunted houses up there. I owned one for the last 2 years I was up there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I bounced around. I worked at all these different haunted houses in order to learn the industry. I'd go in one goldfish bowl, go to the next goldfish bowl,
Yeah.
and then take all that knowledge with me. Um, yeah, and then when I was in '01, I was away from Skull Kingdom, went to a haunt in Texas,
Mm-hmm.
and my wife came through. I knew she was my wife. She didn't know at the time because we didn't
Oh.
know each other, but I knew I was
Yeah.
going to marry her. So after the haunt, uh, well, she was taking pictures on a digital camera. Those were kind of new back then.
Yeah.
Um, and she was taking pictures on a digital camera, and I never broke character, never talked to her, never said a word because I was a big monster. And I had a security guard give her my email saying, I have no pictures of this costume, but I would love some pictures of this costume. Can you please email me some of the pictures? And every time she emailed me, I would end my response with a question. So she had to email back. Well, the haunt ends. I go back to Florida and I'm working at the haunt and I'm working on a project for Universal making these dinosaur costumes and stuff. Packed up my dinosaur costumes, drove to Texas in January and moved to Texas. Got a job at the haunted house I was at, and I've been in Texas ever since '01.
Wow. More gold, guys. If you're listening to that, end every email or I guess now text message and a question. So she has to reply. There you go. And I'm still stuck on the moped from Maryland to Florida. That's amazing.
I needed to get there. I needed to get there. There was, I knew where year-round monsters were, and they were not where I was.
Yeah,
So I had
that's
to, I had to
awesome,
get
man.
there.
So let's talk a little Monster Camp. Let's hear about that. That sounds very
Oh
awesome.
man, what a fulfilling part of where I'm at right now in my life.
Yeah.
Monster Camp is where we teach mask making to people. It's a weekend. It's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Friday, people come in. We ahead of time we pick two designs and we figure out which one of the two they're going to do, and so they know what they're going to make. And then they come in. Friday we sculpt. Saturday we mold it, clean out the mold, and pour it up. Sunday morning, we pull it out. We pull out the mask of the mold
Hmm.
and paint it and finish it. So they leave Sunday with the mask that they made. They sculpted, they molded, they did everything.
So where do you do that there in Texas?
That's once we bought Dark Hour. It used to be here in the shop I'm in right now, but we moved it to Dark Hour when we purchased Dark Hour in 2023.
Oh, okay. So if somebody wants to do that, how are they gonna get the info to do that there?
Stiltbeaststudios.com. And we have an education tab. Often there's a pop-up that happens for Monster Camp because that's one of the main things people. I have a terrible website as far as my costumes go. I'm
Mm-hmm.
at the show. I don't necessarily put them on the website after because I'm not looking to sell a million. I want to sell what I sell at the show and maybe 2 weeks after. Then because we get a lot of theme park orders, so it doesn't make sense for me to have a bunch of stuff on the website. I don't want to be surprised by a $2,000 scarecrow costume that I have to make all of a sudden.
Yeah.
That's why there's not a lot on the website there. Um, but the education tab is very good. It has all the information on making a latex half mask, a full head latex mask, we now have a silicone half mask Monster Camp.
Nice. So when did you start doing that?
We started doing them. Had to be. I think we did the first ones in like 2016 or 2017, but
Okay.
we only did like one or two that year. And now we're doing like 8 a year.
So did people like come to you and be like, dude, you got to show me how to do this, and it just clicks? It's like, you know what? Let's do. I mean, how did it form? How did you get that idea? It's like we're gonna do this monster camp and show people
Well,
how to do this stuff.
I had always been involved in forums online, whether it's a Facebook group or the Fright
Mm-hmm.
Forum or whatever it is. And I would help people I think part of what we do is helping people. and um, I would answer questions on how to make things. So I would get people all the time asking me how to make masks. And when it was convenient, I'd say, just come to the shop when I'm making a mask and I'll show you. And that kind of turned into, hey, this should probably be a class and a little more organized.
Hmm.
And it's uh, it's the coolest thing that I get to do right now
Sounds
is,
cool. Yeah.
8 people or 10 people come. They have ideas in their head. On Friday morning, it is a 25-pound lump of clay.
Right.
When they leave Sunday, it's a monster that they can put on somebody and see it walking around. Like
Yeah.
that's making dreams into reality. That's exactly what you do. It's in your head, it's a dream, it's a concept, and then it's a thing.
For sure.
And they get sculpting tools and bust in order to keep doing that.
So
The
they can take
world
that home with them and
Yeah,
keep going. Yeah.
yep. The world needs more monsters. I'm just doing my part.
Absolutely. I agree. So when it comes to a mask, your personal preference, if you're going to wear a mask, what kind of mask are you going to wear?
I actually have masks here, so I can show one. Elastic straps for a good fit,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're stretchy. It's a half mask, so I could wear a gray hood. I will probably put this on a sock and hair out the rest of it because I don't mind the warmth. I don't mind a hot mask,
Mm-hmm.
but big eye holes for vision, big mouth hole for breathing. That's important. Ear holes cut out so you can hear what's going on around you and not be surprised. Also, there's not a big shelf under the eye. Under the eye, it goes down. I say this in sculpting a lot. If there's a shelf under your eye and it's raining, you'd have to close your eyes because the water would go. So that's kind of something to look at. Where would the water fall if it were raining? Well, that also helps your field of vision. I can see down in this,
Mm-hmm.
so I could put this on a stilt walker. I want to have
Sure.
good field of vision. If you look at the mask from the side, I even have full peripheral vision from the side.
Yeah.
So when you sculpt a mask, I always make it a mask first, a sculpture second. It's a pretty cool looking mask, but it's a
Yeah.
good mask because I can see in it, I can breathe in it, and I can hear. I can know what's going on around me.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. The vision part too is like, some masks you'll get, they look amazing, but for some reason their eyes are kind of covered, or you only got one eye, or some sort of meshing over the eye where you're just kind of seeing through a screen, which
Well,
could
the
be problematic.
the reason is it's a sculpture first.
Yeah.
They want it to look good and they want to sell it on the mask shelf at a party store, or they want to sell it on the show floor at Transworld.
Mm-hmm.
I want to
Yeah.
sell it as a monster because the monster who wears my masks are going to be in the show all night. They're not going to leave in 30 minutes because their face is filled with sweat or because they
Sure.
can't see well and they hurt themselves or, God
Yeah.
forbid, hurt a guest. So,
Yeah. What else with Monster Camp? So you said something about silicone masks. How does that vary from I'm assuming that was a latex mask?
yeah, that was a latex mask. The process is very different from
Yeah.
silicone to latex. The process is very different. And then you have to have a strap system on it that will get really tight because there's no point in having a silicone mask if it doesn't move with your face.
Yeah. Yeah, and they look great when they do that too. How much of has that evolved just from like the early days of haunting, from masks with no mouth movement or barely any, to today's silicone masks that a lot look just pretty killer.
Well, about 10 years ago, there was maybe two latex mask vendors at Transworld. All
Mm-hmm.
the rest were silicone. That has waved off, or that has fallen back, and now there's more latex mask makers again than there were silicone. Silicone came in out of the gate. They're beautiful, but they're not for everybody because they're
Yeah.
hot. You
Yep.
know, they're beautiful. But it's kind of like wearing a plastic bag on your head.
Yeah, it's rough.
I don't want to do that all night. I said I don't mind the heat, but I do mind that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried. I own several, and I have a big head too, so they
So yeah.
squeeze they squeeze me pretty good. I have a melon, um, but they're gorgeous. They're beautiful. I like when people do custom silicone masks. because if you if a haunt owner buys a silicone mask, it's beautiful. They want to use it in promo, but I've seen 3 or 4 different promo shots from 3 or 4 different haunts, and all of them have the same silicone masks.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of look the same. So
Yeah.
that's something that I would just urge people to, mix it up, paint it different, do it different.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of Transworld, we're going to be seeing you there this year. Like we do every year.
You
What
may see me. I might be a blur. There's a lot going on at Transworld this year that I'm a part of and working on. My wife said earlier today, Alan, take your running shoes to Transworld. I just was looking at your schedule. You have a lot going on.
What are you going to be? Let's highlight some of the things you'll be doing, seminars you'll be speaking at.
So I have a seminar called Fun with Phobias,
Yes.
and I just think that that's one of the simplest ways, because a phobia, you can have spiders in your prison. You know, I can
Mm-hmm.
have spiders in dark hour. That it just makes sense. There's certain things, there's certain phobias that can be applied to any haunted house, no matter what it is. And that's kind of what I'm teaching and talking about, is ways to work little things in. We were talking earlier about what someone's favorite thing is in the haunt. I get 2 things all the time.
Yeah.
Everybody loves a vortex tunnel. It's one of the last things in the show, and it's memorable because of the bright colors. And a
Okay.
lot of folks say that's my favorite thing. Other people say that their favorite thing is the dark hallway where it feels like there's cobwebs on your face, which is
Mm-hmm.
just fishing line hanging down.
Yes.
So it
Yeah.
was the $1 effect and the $15,000 effect are both
Yeah.
vying for people's favorite,
Yeah.
always. Um, and it's more of those $1 effects. It's more of those memorable things that you can do to make an environment, to make a feeling, make your guests feel something,
Yeah.
and those kind of things are what I'm working into the phobias class. That's going to be a fun time. Um, Speaking of fun, uh, probably one of the most fun hours of my year is teaching with Ben Armstrong and John LaFlamboy.
Mm-hmm.
We do a 61 things in 60 minutes class. This one is weird ideas to improve your haunted house. And so there's going to be 61 ideas in 60 minutes. It's fast paced. It's crazy. Be ready to take notes. Uh, Ben and John are both amazing presenters, high energy. If anything, I fall off track a little bit. It might not be my best performance simply because I'm engaged in what they're doing and talking about.
Sure.
I've got to teach my 1 minute thing while I'm processing what Ben just said. Um, that's a wonderful class. I'm normally at the Wednesday evening. There is a boy. It's networking night out is the event
Mm-hmm.
Wednesday night. That's
Yeah.
always awesome. Where you're talking rapid fire about different haunted house topics for about 15, 20 minutes, then you switch, and there's like 10 tables set up, and each one has a different topic, and you can go every 10, 15 minutes and switch tables and talk about areas where you're weak or areas where you're strong, depending upon what you want to
Right.
hit. And I normally moderate a table for that. They haven't asked me yet, but that one normally gets booked late, so I'm hoping they'll ask me again. And if they
Yeah.
don't, I'll just go as a guest because I really love it.
There you go.
Let's see. And I think I can talk about this. I don't know if it's up on the website yet. This is kind of a,
Mm-hmm.
a new thing. So YouTube is huge, right? And
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of haunted house people and haunted house centric YouTube stuff. Um, we're doing a panel on for with different YouTube personalities. So I'm on it. Wicked Makers is on it.
Mm-hmm.
A haunt reviewer called Tampa J is going to be there, and another haunt slash entertainment reviewer, Carpetbagger, is going to be there. So that's uh, like a roundtable discussion on haunting and YouTube, and some parallels and things to look out for and things you must do. Um, and keep looking at the Transworld site, 'cause there's also a
Yeah.
social element to that, which will be a free social where you can meet and hang out with all those people.
Oh, that's cool. Hell yeah. So I got to tell you, man. like the phobia one you're talking about. I got some of my crew signed up for that. I think pretty much, we kind of go through and we look for what you're doing, and we're like, okay, there's one with Alan. What is it? Because my crew, when they go to Transworld, I've been bringing them, for a few years now, and they go, Alan Hops. That's we get so much out of those classes. Even my cast manager, she's like, I want to go to that one because he really makes you understand it so well. And then we implement almost everything you do, and it takes the haunt to a next level. And I'm just, thank you for everything you're doing.
My goal is actionable items.
Yeah.
I want to tell you things that you can actually use.
Yes.
Concept is great, and sometimes telling someone a concept or laying it out in a way that they know it, but they've never heard it said that way before will click. But also having actionable, applicable things is a goal of mine for any of my classes. I've got a layout and design class this year too that I think is really good content.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we're in that one as well. The ones when you were talking, I'm like, yeah, that sounds familiar. Well, listen, man, I know you are a busy man, and I don't want to keep you too long. So thank you, man, for jumping on the Shakedown with us. And I hope everybody listening got something out of this, because I've been wanting to do this one with you for a long time, and I'd love to have you in there, but I definitely want to come down to Texas and check it out. I'll see you at Transworld. We'll try to make that work. Is that cool?
Please come see us. I'll definitely see you at Transworld. Whenever I'm not teaching, I think I'm teaching 6 classes. I've got HAA duties. I'm a board member for the Haunted Attraction Association. Now I'm cycling out this year, so someone else is going to take my spot, and I am very excited and happy for them.
Absolutely.
And I'll reclaim a little bit of time.
Right.
But yeah, I'll see you at Transworld, and if you can make it to Texas, please come down to Texas.
All right, man. I'll get a hold of you. Thanks so much for being on, man, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Stay scary.